What's up, guys? Lucky Locks here. Welcome back to another prediction video. This is going to be for LFA 133. It's going to be live on Friday night from Denver, Colorado. And you can definitely tell that this is a Colorado card. Lots of guys who train in Colorado, from Colorado, on this card. I think there's like an elevation fight team representative in almost all of the fights here. So should be a really good night. My apologies for not doing the last LFA card. I actually got COVID right before, I normally make my video. So I was a little bit out of commission for about 2 days there. But, we're back at it now. And with that said, let's not waste any more time. Let's get right back into the fights. The first fight we have here is between Ryan Charlebois and Jeremiah Curtright. This is going to be a welterweight bout. Charlebois is, like I said, one of many Elevation Fight Team fighters on this card. He had a 6-0 amateur career. Virginia Cage Fighting Championship welterweight champ as an amateur. He was also the Triton Fights middleweight champ as an amateur. So he turns pro in 2019, picks up a win on local promotion Colorado Combat Club, then wins 2 fights on LFA to make his pro record 3-0, 2 wins via KO as a pro, and he's still a young guy right now. Still hitting his stride in this game. This will be, in my opinion, his toughest fight to date. He was supposed to fight both Jalen Fuller and Multibek Orobai. I think those both would have been very tough matchups, tougher than this one. They actually ended up fighting each other. But like I said, this is going to be probably the stiffest test that Charlevoix has had to face so far in his career. He is a good striker, has good kicks at range, sharp combinations. You rarely see him throw any singular strikes. He likes to follow stuff up, which is always good to see. He's a technical guy on the feet. Also has pretty good get-ups, pretty good defensive grappling. He's looked quite impressive so far in his LFA fights. But, like I said, I think this is going to be a better test of his skills than what we've seen so far. He's going to be fighting Jeremiah Curtright, who was 8-6-1 as an amateur, then turned pro in 2019, started off 0-2. One of the losses was to Bennett, who we'll discuss later. That is not a bad loss at all. And then, he really turned his career around. He picked up 4 straight wins, got himself to 4-2, made his LFA debut on the first LFA card of this year, which was a tremendous card, I might add. But he lost to Sarek Shields in that one, who was an amazing wrestler and looks to have a good future, even with the loss in his most recent outing. But Jeremiah Curtright, pretty decent striker. Where he tends to get in trouble is with the grappling side of things. First 2 pro losses came by submission, and his last loss was a retirement after the second round against a very dominating wrestler in Sarek Shields. I don't think he's going to have to worry about a ton of grappling in this fight, but I am still going to go with Charlebois to win here. I think we're going to see a standout fight for the most part, and I just think Charlebois is a little more polished on the feet. I think he can win the striking exchanges in this matchup, so that's what I'm going with in this first one. All right, next up, we're going to move on to the heavies. We got Tynan versus Trevor Wallace at heavyweight. Tynan, another Elevation Fight Team fighter we're going to talk about on this card, born in Fort McMurray, Alberta. He has an 8-0 amateur record with a 100% finish rate. He was the Northwest Fight Challenge heavyweight champ, the 6 feet under heavyweight champ, and the Tough Enough heavyweight champ. If there was an amateur belt, he was getting it. If there was a fight to win, he was winning it. Turned pro in March, won his pro debut in under a minute. He's got power on the feet, 5 wins by knockout. A lot of them are coming from ground and pound, however. He is a wrestler by trade, former North Dakota State University wrestler in his junior and senior years of college. He was an All-American in junior college before that as a sophomore, and he was a junior national champ in freestyle wrestling in Canada back in high school. Also ran track and cross country back in the day, so this guy is quite an athlete. He has 4 wins via submission on his resume, and he's coming into this fight on 9 straight wins, including pro and amateur results. So he's going to be coming up against Trevor Wallace here, who had a 3-2 amateur career, turned pro in 2020, won his first 4 fights very easily, and picked up wins on LFA and CFFC, very good shows, but just not against the greatest competition. And then on LFA 106, he fought Bubba Grant. And, he looked really good at the start, but he gassed out pretty quickly there. And I'm talking about in around a minute, sub 1 minute, he was pretty much gassed. I was decently high on Wallace at a certain point, but that was just really not a good look last time out, and I can tell you that I really don't think Tynan is going to gas here. So Tynan is a massive -1,000 favorite here, so it's not like I'm a genius for picking this guy. That is too steep for me to get involved, but I really do think he's going to get it done here. He looks really good in my opinion. So yeah, give me Tynan to win this fight and probably do it inside of the distance. All right, and now we're going to be in the welterweight division for a bout between Bennett and Trey Waters. Ben Bennett is a hot prospect from Elevation Fight Team, hot off of a huge KO win over another hype prospect in Elmar Umarov. I picked Bennett there as the dog in that fight. I'm going to toot my own horn a little bit. But he also has a win over Jeremiah Curtright, who we just talked about a few minutes ago. He was actually scheduled to fight Khamzat Chimaev on Brave CF in 2018. I think it's probably good that that didn't happen. Does have a win on Brave that he picked up in his pro debut. He has a massive and very impressive amateur resume. 18 wins and 4 losses listed on Tapology, but it was mentioned on the LFA broadcast during his last fight that he has over 60 amateur fights, which is just crazy. He was an IMMAF world champion, fought guys like Brendan Allen, Darian Weeks, both in the UFC now, Alex Martinez of PFL, Will Starks, who's a good prospect on LFA, all before turning pro. That's just super good experience to have as an amateur, and then we can see the way that his talent and his experience translates over to his pro career, because he's looked absolutely amazing as a pro as well. He's a solid striker, good grappler as well. Really impressive, the grappling success he was able to have against Elmar Umarov, who is a very good grappler himself. And in my opinion, Ben Bennett is a super legit prospect. He's going to be fighting Trey Waters here, who had a 7-2 amateur career, and he's now 5-0 undefeated as a pro. Fought 4 times last year, so very, very active. At 6'5", he'll be the bigger man in the cage. He has an 80% finish rate as a pro as well. Definitely hasn't faced the same level of competition as Ben Bennett, but he's doing what you would want him to do. He's getting guys out of there early. He's looking good. He's good at distance. You might imagine that he is long and rangy with that kind of a frame, and he definitely is. He's also a dangerous grappler. He has 3 submissions on his resume, but personally, I really can't see him submitting Ben Bennett. Bennett is a prospect that I'm pretty high on. I am going to pick him to win here. I feel like he's just a better fighter anywhere this one goes. Ben Bennett is a guy I can definitely see making it to the UFC with a couple more wins, although he is still very young in his pro career. I really like what I see from this guy, and I do think he's very legit. So give me Ben Bennett in this fight. All right, and we're going to move on to the co-main event now, which is also at welterweight for a match between Harris Talundzic and Bahatebole Batebolati. You're going to have to excuse my pronunciation there. I'm sure that I got that wrong, but doing my best to get that one right. Talundzic is known as the Bosnian Silverback. He was a 7-1 amateur, now a 4-0 pro, has won 12 fights in a row combined between both coming into this fight. 3 of 4 last pro fights have been on LFA. He found a finish via submission in his last 2. He's training at Factory X, and he's really focused right now. He said in an interview he wants to finish this fight, and he's aiming to either get a shot in Contender Series or fight for the title at welterweight and LFA, and he says that there is nothing else on his mind at the moment, so you definitely like to hear that coming into this fight. He's a good striker at range, a little bit loose, but good leg kicks, good kicking game in general, looks for combinations, he's got solid power. Good wrestlers are able to get this guy down, but he has decent get-ups. He's a pretty decent grappler himself. He won his last 2 fights via sub. I think that there are some guys with a better wrestling and overall MMA grappling game that are going to be able to keep him down, but he's definitely been able to hold his own thus far in his career. Now, looking at Batebolati, known as the Lion King, I believe he is Kyrgyz Chinese, representing both countries, I think. He's listed on Tapology as Chinese, but does have Kyrgyzstan in his Instagram bio and has some posts in the Kyrgyz language. Does a lot of his training and competing in China, listed as training at China Top Team, and he is a main training partner of Li Jin Liang, and I believe that he's getting some work in with him down in Florida at Sanford MMA, in addition to training back in China. So he's listed as 6-0-1 on Tapology and then 3-0 on Sherdog. Either way, does not have a loss. If we're going by the Tapology record, he has an 83% finish rate, finishing 5 of 6 wins. And if we're going to go with the Sherdog record, he has a 100% finish rate, finishing 3 out of 3 wins. So, to be completely honest, I couldn't find a single full fight video for this guy anywhere. I tried all the usual tricks, copy and pasting the Chinese characters on Tapology into Google and into YouTube. Couldn't find anything. The only tape that I've seen is a short clip on his Instagram of him getting a KO. Striking looked a little choppy, a little bit wild, but really hard to judge off of such a short clip. I have not seen any grappling from him, but I'm going to assume that he has some wrestling. A lot of these Kyrgyz fighters tend to have that heavy wrestling style, and there is a picture of him on Instagram wearing an I Wrestle shirt, so I'm going to take his word for it and assume that he wrestles. So as far as a pick in this matchup, this is going to just kind of be more based on the line. I think that it's going to be very difficult for Talundzic to cover minus 325 here. And, like I said, I found essentially next to no tape for Batebolati, but being undefeated, training with Li Jinliang, getting some time at Stanford MMA, and presumably being a wrestler, I think that this makes this fight just a lot closer than the line indicates. Now, we are making a ton of assumptions here, so I'm not going to come out and say that I think you should bet Batebolati. However, I am going to caution against laying this kind of chalk onto Lunzik. I've never bet or picked against Talundzic before, but I don't think he's a really, super elite prospect or anything like that. I think I'm actually going to side with the plus 250 dog in Batebolati in the co-main event here. All right, and that's going to bring us up to the main event. We have a really good fight here for the vacant featherweight title in the LFA. We have Michael Stack versus Jose Delano. And Michael Stack is a 7-1 fighter, training out of Trials MMA and Fitness in Colorado, and also spent some time at, yep, you guessed it, Elevation Fight Team. So he's on a 3-fight win streak right now. He is 4-1 in the LFA, the one loss coming to Kai Kamaka. And as it always says on Tapology, it says he's 6 feet. He's not actually. He's 5'10", as you will see on Friday night when they put up the tail of the tape. Still, though, a very big 145er. And 2 fights ago, he looked maybe the worst I've seen him look against Jackson Feelho. Stack was a big fave. The decision was unanimous, but definitely pretty sweaty. He just seemed kind of off in that fight, but he followed it up with a very solid performance against Kyle Gregorio, who's a really big featherweight as well, and also missed weight pretty badly for that fight. So a hard-fought win for Stack there. Look back to his usual self. Striking-wise, not the best striker. When he does run into trouble, like the moments of adversity that he faced against Jackson Feelho, it's when he kind of can't get the fight down, when he gets stuck on the feet. His game plan is, get to the hips, get some wrestling going, and he's very good at that. I don't think he can win a stand-up fight against a good striker, and I don't think that he's going to be able to win a stand-up fight against Jose Delano if that is indeed what we get here. Wrestling-wise, he is a great wrestler. If he gets it going, he's very hard to stop. Last fight against Kyle Gregorio, he was able to have wrestling success against a high-level black belt, who was also a massive guy, and I think that in general, that kind of bodes well for this fight here, but he is going to be in tough against Jose Delano here, who's a young guy at 25, will be at a little bit of a size disadvantage against Stack, but he's not a small 145er either. He just defeated a bigger guy in Jonas Bellarino last time out. Now, Bellarino is not as thick or as built as Stack, but he is taller and he is longer. Delano has 2 losses in his pro career, 1 in 2014, 1 in 2015, coming into this fight on 9 straight wins. Bit of lower level competition up to his last 2 fights. He did defeat Luciano Benicio for the vacant Shuto featherweight belt, and almost no one thought he would win that fight there. Then he gets scheduled to face rising prospect Gabriel Alves Braga on LFA 126, which was a card in Brazil. But Rafael Barbosa fell out of the main event title fight with Jonas Bellarino, and Delano slides into that spot, and that was another fight where he didn't get much respect from the public, and he pulled it off again. So he would be the LFA 145-pound champ right now, but unfortunately he missed weight for that bout. So he's looking to get the belt here. Hopefully he does make the weight. He has 6 finishes in his career, has a pretty potent sub game, and he's also a good striker. He's really aggressive. He wants to be on the front foot. Good work to the body and the head. Good sub game, like I mentioned, very slick on the mat. And Michael Stack has dealt with that before and from more physically imposing fighters, but I think the stand-up ability of Delano and his overall grappling competence could make this a really tough fight for Stack. So although Delano isn't as big as Gregorio, he still is a pretty big 145-pounder. I think Delano is going to be the much better striker in this matchup. I think he's going to be able to keep this fight on the feet for the majority of the 25 minutes here. I don't really see Stack being able to finish him, and I think it's going to be really hard for Stack to wrestle him for 3 out of the 5 rounds here. I see Delano winning the vast majority of the minutes on the feet in this fight. Stack struggled a little bit against Jackson Feelho on the feet, and I think this matchup is going to be way more difficult than that in that aspect. So I am going to be going with Jose Delano here. He is a slight favorite in this fight. I'm going to pick him to win the vacant featherweight title here. And hopefully, he makes the weight so he actually can win it this time. But that's going to do it for my LFA 133 predictions. This should be a really good card. This is one of the best LFA cards of the year. Definitely some really good fights on this card. I am looking forward to it a great deal. So best of luck, guys, with any bets that you choose to make. And this should be a great night of fights on Friday night. I'm definitely looking forward to it. As always, I will catch you on the next video.